Welcome to the Shared Path. I'm Maggie Linton. If you love American history and having fun too, then you'll definitely want to get a copy of Strange USA: Historical Oddities, Roadside Parodies, Unique Eats, and Amazing Americans. Joining us to talk about this very unique book is spokesperson Brian Boone. He's also a contributor to another one of my favorite books, now in its 35th anniversary edition, Uncle John's Bathroom Reader. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be
It's
here.
it's so great to have you. Let's talk about you first because you love trivia and just it's kind of been your lifelong thing, and now you have some place to put it.
I do, yes. I remember being a little kid and watching Jeopardy and just, amassing fun facts and just, any sort of, game shows and watching any sort of trivia thing and documentaries and just reading books and just collecting information from when I was little and then got out of school and looking for writing work and I found work with Uncle John's Bathroom Reader, like just making trivia books all day long, year after year. That's a dream gig right there.
But it's more than just you. It's a really strong group of people because you've been doing it for over 20 years. And
Yeah.
then you have another bunch of people. You're all kindred souls, right?
We just love we we'll be working on something and then we'll run down the stairs and like, hey, you guys, you won't believe this. Like it's just this constant trivia factory.
Well, I've been a fan of Uncle John's Bathroom Reader for years. In fact, we keep one in our bathroom
Hey.
because every now and then, you got to stay a little bit longer. and and I start reading, and the next thing I know, I've spent 5 or 10 minutes there. But
Right.
putting together Strange USA, it's coming out at just the right time because there is so much about America to celebrate, isn't it?
There really is. And in times like this it can be kind of hard to be patriotic, but this is the kind of stuff that makes me proud to be an American. There's so much uniquely American stuff and history and we're a new country, but and there's a lot of scandal and there's a lot of controversy and a lot of things not to be proud of. But there's just a lot of intrepid souls out there who did something unique with their lives and a lot of you know just roadside attractions and like weird foods that were invented here like that's the kind of stuff like I'm proud to be an American when it's the place that invented the corn dog or the giant roadside fiberglass dinosaurs like you're not going to get that anyplace else on earth but in this weird diverse gigantic place that's like 100 different countries rolled into one.
Well, the influence of so many other countries coming to here, that's what's
Sure.
again makes America
Yeah.
so special. But I want to
Yeah.
talk about one of the routes that kind of goes in and out of there, and that's Route 66, because there's a lot of stuff all along 66, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's America's through line and it's decommissioned, but it's still just, so entrenched in our history. If you go, because of the show, because of the song, because you just think of you know, people cruising through in their on their convertibles just past all of these, things, the dinosaurs. Let's see, the dinosaurs used to be all over Route 66, and there's a cement baby dinosaur hatching from a cement egg. There's all these, petrified wood shops and little rock shops that kind of set the tone of what highway life and the road trip life was going to be like. It's Route 66 is that.
And the other thing, people are still so proud that they have something to do with 66. I think about Albuquerque, New Mexico, and
Yeah.
how almost all along that this one stretch, every sign, every hotel, every motel is it got something to do with 66 on there.
Yeah, it's just I mean, is it that alliteration? Is it the history? I don't know.
A little bit of everything. We're talking. So I've got my stars and stripes on, and I want to talk about the 4th of July because it's so much more than just the day the Constitution was signed. Because you gave me facts that I didn't know about two presidents that also have to do with July 4th.
Yeah, I mean it looms large in history and then it kind of looms large in uh just kind of the lore of America. We don't we're we're a young country, and especially in the early days, we didn't have a lot of, lore and mythology, something like King Arthur or these ancient tales that have been passed down, like, the Odyssey and stuff like that. But on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence signing, so the 50th anniversary of the founding of America, uh, July 4th, 1826, two founding fathers died. Two of our first three presidents both died on the 4th of July, the same one, and they were friends and rivals. John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, both founding fathers, both early presidents. They were friends, they were colleagues, they respected each other, but had a falling out in 1800 when they ran for the presidency against one another. And that election is regarded as the birth of negative campaigning. So they said horrible things about each other. And it was things were kind of weird with them for a while. They kind of reconciled after the War of 1812 because they kind of felt that early founding fathers pride again after the British invasion. Um, but then things kind of soured again, and John Adams, he wanted to do two things. He wanted to live to see the 50th anniversary of the founding of the country, and he wanted to outlive Thomas freaking Jefferson. So he's 92 years old by the time the 50th anniversary rolls around, and in the early 1800s, people didn't really live to be
in their
90 years
90s.
old. So he's
Yeah.
no. I mean, now not so much, but like especially then. So he's just barely holding on. He dies on the 4th of July, and his dying words, which this sounds totally made up, it's been verified. I could not believe this myself. John Adams' last words are Thomas Jefferson lives. Um, so dies with words of lament that he didn't achieve his petty little goal. Little does he know that Thomas Jefferson actually died earlier that day. So so they both died. Thomas Jefferson was probably thinking about John Adams. And then 5 years later, James Monroe dies on the 4th of July. So it figures so large in the lives of these guys who helped found the country.
Yeah. While we're staying with presidents, there's the tan suit problem. And, you never think about it until you read something like this. But I remember the uproar when President Obama wore the tan suit. And then you start
Right.
going back in your memory, go, when else have I seen a tan suit on a president?
It's kind of cursed, and like honestly, I thought Obama looked pretty sharp in the tan suit.
I
Like
did too.
not a lot of people could pull off a tan suit, but it goes back to President Eisenhower. He wore one, but because of, black and white photography and TV, nobody really cared. But Richard Nixon did the same thing, but it was with when Jimmy Carter posed for his official presidential portrait in the Oval Office, he was wearing a tan suit. And so that kind of started the idea of it, just kind of a president, not wearing, a black suit or a dark blue suit. It was kind of weird. And then Bill Clinton does it. Donald Trump wears one when he hosts Saturday Night Live. And then Obama wears one to a press conference about ISIS, and he's wearing a tan suit. And the media notices, the fashion bloggers notice. Representative Steve King of New York says that the suit somehow shows weakness. Quote, there's no way any of us can excuse what the president did yesterday, which is wear a tan suit. uh, Obama uh, Obama critics they start calling it, yeah, yes we tan, and the audacity of taupe. Esquire calls it a monstrosity. The New York Times says that wearing khaki indicates a wishy-washy decision maker, to the point where the White House actually had to release a statement saying that the president stands squarely behind the decision to wear his summer suit. It's the Thursday before Labor Day, and he feels pretty good about it.
And now, it's amazing how now, because we have so much social media, that everything, anything can become a controversy as
Absolutely,
never
yes.
before.
It seems kind of quaint now. Just this is just a few years ago that a president wore a tan suit and it got everybody in a kerfuffle.
Yeah, yeah, it's very, very, very strange. And I'm going to stick with one more question about presidents. And all throughout Strange USA are the how presidents and their wives met. but I love the one in particular about Harry Truman and his wife Bessie Wallace, and they were so they were literally almost childhood type of couple, and stayed together the whole time.
Yeah, they met in 1903. Oh, I'm sorry. They met in 1890 when they were little kids, and they met at church. They met at the Baptist Church in Independence, Missouri. They were both in Sunday school. He was 6, she was 5, and Truman later wrote of their first meeting, quote, "We made a number of new acquaintances, and I became interested in one in particular. She had golden curls and has to this day the most beautiful blue eyes. We went to Sunday school, public school, high school, and graduated in the same class and marched down life's road together." And they got married in 1919. So they knew each other for their entire lives. Like that's cinematic. That's just so very sweet.
Yeah. I always loved Harry Truman. My band. I grew up in Leavenworth, Kansas, and our band
Oh,
actually played at the his when his library opened.
wow.
So he was very special, and I can remember. In fact, my sister and I have a picture standing in front of his home. He used to go out walking every day, and my parents took us down so we could meet him. He didn't sign autographs. He had one Secret Service person with him. He'd always say hello, and he would just walk. He was walking. He'd have his
Wow.
little walking stick with him, and so to me, he was always a very special president. I've met some other presidents since then, but Harry holds a special place in my heart.
Gosh, he was really quite a guy. And
Yeah.
the just so much of a regular guy that he
Yes.
he didn't he started the whole presidential pension thing because he didn't have a lot of money, so he didn't want to write his memoirs because he thought it was undignified for a former president to take money. So the current president at the time said, "Well, we need to make sure Harry Truman gets paid. He did so much for this country. We need to make sure that he's comfortably living in retirement."
Well, he made a big difference, that's for sure.
What a
Um,
sweetheart.
yeah, a real sweetheart as far as I'm concerned. Uh, I want to move to Hollywood, the the
Yes,
Hollywood
ma'am.
Forever Cemetery in LA. Okay, that one's a little different, isn't it?
It is. It's what's weird is that they like show movies there now, but it's it's haunted. It's kind of the oldest cemetery in Hollywood, and it was kind of they said it was the place to be buried between the 1920s and the 1940s, like golden age of Hollywood, kind of the first round of movies. Um, it was just kind of the place to be, and now you can go there and watch horror movies that they project onto the white walls of the mausoleums. Very hard word to say. They do a Day of the Dead celebration, and it's the only cemetery in the country that is recommended as a good date spot. It's a good first date spot. Usually,
It yeah, I there are some famous cemeteries in LA, but like I said, I'd never heard of the Forever Cemetery, so that makes it pretty interesting for me.
yeah, that's where you find Mel Blanc, his Mel Blanc, the voice of all the Looney Tunes. He's
Yeah.
buried there, and his headstone says "That's all, folks," which is very clever. Johnny Ramone from the Ramones got a gigantic statue of Johnny Ramone on top of his funeral plot. And then Hattie McDaniel has a plot there. Uh, First African American Oscar winner from Gone with the Wind, but she's not actually bodied there because the not actually buried there because the racist organizers would not allow a black person to be buried in their precious little cemetery.
Yeah. Well, speaking of blacks, I did not realize that Pennsylvania had the first protest against slavery in 1688. It's like,
1688.
it's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, you don't think about, I mean, you never heard about it in our history books. Yeah, the
Mm.
first public protest against slavery in 1688 in Germantown, outside
And
of
that's,
Philadelphia.
yeah, which is just a suburb of Philly. Yeah. But I guess that's the reason why people were trying so hard to get to Pennsylvania. You get over
That's right.
from Maryland, which was kind of couldn't make up its mind whether it was or wasn't slave states. And but when
Right.
you got to Pennsylvania, you knew you were in a free state.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The Clown Motel Museum. The Clown
The-
Motel. I never knew there was one. I've been to the museum in Henderson, but I've never been to the motel. I didn't even know there was one.
There's a clown motel. I mean, this is one of the great roadside attractions. Don't know if I'd ever want to. I'd like to see it and walk around it, but I don't know if I'd want to stay in it because it's if you don't like clowns, this is not the place for you. So it's in Tonopah in Central Nevada. So it's a man named Clarence David died, and in 1985, he left his children a collection of like 150, you know, clowns. So they opened up this clown motel. And so there's a giant neon clown outside, and then they've just collected thousands of more clowns in addition to their father's stuff in the museum in the lobby. And each room features at least two clown paintings. And for an extra $25, you can rent an EMF meter for ghost hunting because the clown motel is also haunted. So you've got clowns and ghosts.
I'm amazed at how many different places you all mention that are haunted or at least have been thought to be haunted. They're all throughout the whole country, aren't they?
It's weird. And you think of ghosts as being, from, the Victorian era, just these, wailing, women lamenting, husbands lost at sea or whatever. But the Grand Canyon is haunted. There's a spot, or you think about, only indoors can be haunted, but there's apparently a spot at the Grand Canyon that's haunted. It's called Crash Canyon. In the mid 1950s, two small planes crashed kind of virtually at the same time in this little area. They were apparently trying to get the passengers a better view of the canyon, and they crashed. And it's in such a remote spot that they couldn't ever fully recover all of the debris or even the remains of the survivors. So it just became this kind of spot about local lore. So in 2006, a park ranger from the Grand Canyon decides to hike all the way down to this spot and camp overnight. So she does, and she's woken at about 3 in the morning to the sound of footsteps and voices, which is weird because it's remote. It's no one's gonna get there. She'd have seen anybody that was coming that way. So she opens up her tent and she peers out and she sees this long line of people all dressed in like 1950s clothes. That'll look like Fonzie. Just this long line of people like marching up the hill, toward the site of the crash. So, and she said later when reporting this, she's like, "Yeah, it could have been a dream, but it wasn't a dream." Like weird.
We didn't have cameras and stuff like that. That's the way
No,
we do now. And speaking of, you gave the name of that town. You list a whole bunch of little strange names for towns, and Pennsylvania really has quite a few. But they
it's
are
a
all over the country, aren't they?
they are all over the country. Intercourse, Pennsylvania is the one that I always think of,
Yeah.
uh, just because it makes me chuckle. If I was
Mhm.
forever a 12-year-old boy, I mean, Duck, West Virginia, Chicken, Alaska, Marlin, Texas, Coyote, New Mexico, Dinosaur, Colorado, Rabbit Town, Maryland, Caribou, Maine, Hoot Owl, Oklahoma, Otter, Montana, Wolf, Wyoming, Toad Suck, Arkansas is probably the best one.
Yeah, there and you don't always say how they got their names, but there are some really unique ones. And I think about the town of Accident, and I'm going, what happened there? Was
Right,
it an
yes.
accident because they came there? They were
I
planning on going someplace else?
I think yeah, Accident Maryland. I think that is like they were looking for someplace else and they stumbled upon this place and it was a fertile valley and so they decided to stay there and commemorate that as accident.
Exactly. An accident. All right, definitely. Um, with the elections coming up, we kind of talked about the craziness that went on between Jefferson and Adams, but there's a quote in the book that I still use, that I will use always. You can't fix stupid, but you can vote it out.
Absolutely. That's a bumper sticker and that is a very good thing to live by. Like, I mean, there's so much wrapped up in that bumper sticker. Like, this is America. We can vote. We can change things every couple of years. If it doesn't work out, get rid of them. Get rid of them. Use exercise your power and get out there and vote, and then tell other people to do it with a bumper sticker on your car.
Right, from local to national, it's all there. You talk about towns that are known for good food. I used to live in St. Louis, and it really is a foodie town.
Oh, those
There's so
raviolis.
much good food
Oh,
there,
yes.
including the fried raviolis, which is you don't find anywhere else.
No, no, my wife went there for a family thing, and I'm like, you have to seek out the raviolis and the pizza that St. Louis pizza with the three cheese blend that
Mhm.
you can't find anywhere else.
Right. And a lot of the places that even serve them are truly unique. You know that there's that aura left over from the World's Fair and some great houses and
Oh,
things
that's
like that
right.
that have then been flipped over to restaurants and that kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some neat stuff there. Okay, I'm looking at all my notes because I wrote down so many. Let's talk about Thanksgiving because we all have a tendency to think it's all in Massachusetts, but it's not. Uh, Texas.
Texas, 80 years prior to the Pilgrims in Plymouth Rock, there was what's basically the first Thanksgiving in the New World in the colonial age. So in 1540, Francisco Vázquez de Coronado, Spanish explorer, is tasked by the King of Spain to go to the New World and find the mysterious fabled lost city of gold. Um, he does not find it because this book and our lives would be a lot different if he had found the lost city of gold in what's now Texas. So he's assigned office duty in Mexico City, and he only lived because of a Thanksgiving event in 1541. So morale's running low, food is running low with Coronado and his men. So they're stumbling around, they're almost out of food, and they find this community of Tejas Indians in the Palo Duro Canyon near what's now Amarillo. And they take them in. They don't have to do this. They take them in. They show them a good time. They feed them. They give them food to take with them. They drink. They party. And in his journals, Coronado is so moved by these gestures that he declares this a day of thanks. And this just kind of became like Texas lore. Like nobody really knew about this outside of Texas until 1959, when the Texas Society Daughters of the American Colonists dedicated a plaque at the site of the event near Amarillo, and they call it the first official Thanksgiving feast. So the first Thanksgiving in America wasn't in the 1620s in Plymouth. It was in May. It was on May 23rd, 1541 in Texas.
Pretty good weather back then too. Even
Yeah, I
now,
mean it. I mean,
May.
let's have Thanksgiving in May. Just kick off our summers and
Uh,
maybe
uh,
do a little Christmas shopping. I don't know.
yeah, it's a kickoff before the 4th of July, that's for sure. And like you said,
Yeah.
kind of starts summer. Um, Talk about Nicodemus too, because that was pretty interesting. What is it? Settling Nicodemus, but there's a Nicodemus, Kansas too, which was an
Um,
all
I,
black town.
I'm sorry. I gotta look that one up. There's so much in this book. I
Oh, okay.
can't even spell Nicodemus right now. There
Nicodemus.
we go. Yes. So,
Yeah,
1877, the height of Reconstruction in the South,
right.
African American Kentucky pastor, W.H. Smig, teamed up with a white land developer, W.R. Hill, to form the Nicodemus Town Company. And their goal was to relocate African Americans from Kentucky to what was going to be an all-black town in Kansas. So Kansas was a logical choice. It was a free state, and it's where John Brown, led his operations of abolition. And the government was offering free land on the plains to former slaves. So by the summer of 1877, they'd persuaded 300 people to move to this 161-acre plot of land in northwestern Kansas, and they named it Nicodemus. By the mid 1880s, it was small, it was thriving. There were a couple of white-owned businesses, but most were owned by black residences. And by the 1920s, it was a town of about 600 people, and it's still a largely black town today. And in 1996, they made it a National Historical Site, and it's the only town west of the Mississippi that was founded by and for former slaves.
And the interesting thing is, I used to have a roommate who was from there. Her family
Oh
were
wow!
farmers. Yes,
Oh
that's
wow!
that's how I first. I mean, being from Kansas, you hear about it, but I've actually been to the town, and
Yeah.
there's a sense of pride there. Yeah, and almost everybody's a farmer or has something to do with farming.
Wow, it's still a farming community just because
Still a farming community.
that's how they set it up. Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. But so we haven't talked about the Uncle John's Awesome 35th anniversary edition. Again, full of lots of trivia and a lot of fun. And when do you start putting all of this information together? Or is it just ongoing all year and you decide what goes where?
It's kind of ongoing because with this one we realized we had a lot of stuff that we could just do while we were making the last 36, which is coming out soon. We decided we had so much Americana that we could do like I've been calling it Uncle John's backseat reader because it's good to just keep in your car for a road trip and regale your family members with fun facts as you drive through on your road trip to your vacation. But we did this one and then we got going on the other one too. It's pretty much ongoing, but it takes about I'd say 9 months start to finish. We just started in May. We just started working on the 37th edition, which will be out, I believe, next year. Yeah. So it takes about 9 months when we start, compiling and putting everything together. But we're year round. I look through books every day. I look through newspapers and magazines, and if I see something on the internet, I'll write it down. I've just overflowing, you know, notes of disorganization on my computer and my phone.
That's kind of fun. It just kind of keeps you constantly looking for something fun and interesting, doesn't it?
It keeps me sharp, and it's not a bad gig just to constantly be looking for fun stuff that you can share with people. It's a very pleasurable job.
And now, are you ready to go on? Have you done Jeopardy already?
I did go on Jeopardy about 15 years ago. Yeah,
Okay.
I
Maybe
did.
it's time to
I
go back because you've got even more facts now, huh?
I should have waited. I could have had more in my head. I did not win. So I ran the board in the first round and then I blew it all on a fact about Thomas Jefferson.
Oh my.
Yeah, they
Well,
it was about like which president spent a lot of time in Paris, and we all know it's Thomas Jefferson, but for some reason I said James Monroe, and
oh,
I just blanked. I just blanked. But it was
well,
it was quite an experience. Alex Trebek was still there and got to go in the studio, and it was wild.
well, listen, thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to get this done. I wish you continue great search for fun facts. Both of these are just absolutely fabulous books. I love them, mainly
Thank you.
because you can sit down, you can do a quick read, and you can get on with it. And if there are things that wind up staying in my mind that makes it a
Wow.
lot of fun. So I'm learning
Wonderful.
constantly, just like you.
Well, thank you so much. It's lovely to hear stuff like that. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, many thanks to Brian Boone for decades of fun, facts, and abundant history. Strange USA, historical oddities, roadside parodies, unique eats, and amazing Americans, and the 35th anniversary edition of Uncle John's Bathroom Reader are both available through portablepress.com and other locations. Until next time, seek peace and spread lots of love. I'm Maggie Linton.